Whoops. Alright, I'm picking back up where I left off yesterday with photo editing. I'm doing some more skateboarding shots. I've already got the medium contrast up on this picture. I'm going to dehaze it a little bit. Hey Justin. Pull the shadows up a little bit. Get some of the detail on his body. Looks like we've already got one true white over there in the very corner. So I'm just actually going to leave it right there. The blacks. Deepen those a little bit. See before, after, before, and after. Clarity is always the thing I can never decide what to do with. Because if I crank it up, it looks ridiculous. It looks like someone just stuck a really bad Instagram filter on it. And if I crank it down, the picture gets all fluffy. And it looks like a marshmallow. I tend to push it up a little bit for skateboarding photos because it makes it look like grittier. Pull the vibrance up a little bit. I say a little bit and I push it like halfway up. So right now we have before and after. I'm going to leave the saturation right where it's at. Pull these highlights down. See, there's not really much going on, so it's not having a huge effect. Sometimes I just take the slider and I just move it up and down and see what it's affecting in the picture. This highlight slider is so nuanced that really the only thing it's affecting is this like shipping container out here. It's got some graffiti on it, and because it's white, there's some shadows, like it's blown out a little bit. So if I pull it down, it gets kind of gray, and if I pull it up, it gets like really overexposed because the sun was hitting it directly, because that area is not covered. I'm just gonna pull it down a tiny bit. Pull the lights up some, brighten up the image overall. This guy's jawline is out of control. Look at that jawline. It's like perfect. Pull the darks up a little bit too to really brighten up the shadowed areas. And I always brighten the darks and then I push the shadows down a little bit just to give some more contrast. I like having some heavy contrast in my pictures because I think it makes it feel more like dynamic and alive. not going to mess with individual colors yet. I will split tone though. Probably pull it blue like I usually do. The highlight split tone in these underground areas, really the biggest thing it affects is all the gray like cement down here. Like if I pull the hue around, you can see it like barely changing color down there, like the color toning. So I'm actually gonna leave it right in there. It doesn't really make that big of a difference. The shadow one will change the toning of like everything up here though, because it's all dark. And then I can pull the hues. See how it changes like the color of all the beams up there. It's like super green right now, and then I can pull it and make it a little more like orangey. I think I'm gonna leave it kind of in the blue to neutralize it. I just kind of like the way that looks. I learned Lightroom. Basically, I bought, like Adobe has a photo package where you kind of like rent Lightroom and Photoshop, and you can like add other programs to it because Adobe has a bunch of programs, and I only have Lightroom and Photoshop, and I don't use Photoshop very much, like really ever. I should work on it more, but I don't, just because most of the stuff I want to do is in Lightroom. Really, whenever I got Lightroom, I just like fucked around in it all the time and just experimented, because you can't really mess anything up in Lightroom, which is the nice thing, because it's mostly about just like cleaning up pictures and kind of retoning them and lighting them, whereas in Photoshop you can really like do crazy shit in Photoshop. Like you can, you know, cut an entire person out and replace them with someone else, or you can, you know, cut the sky out of a picture. You can do everything in Photoshop, but I'm not really, I don't really go for like that heavy of like graphic design in my pictures. I just want to clean them up. But I do watch YouTube tutorials for Lightroom every once in a while. There's a guy named Anthony Morganti who is like an older Italian dude who he's got a really big comprehensive YouTube series about Lightroom and about Photoshop and some things about just photography in general. He's a really nice guy, really mature. He has very sort of classic photography style. Like he's not like edgy and, you know, doing like really like young sort of like I don't know, like he just does like regular photography. That doesn't really sound like a compliment, but I swear it is. And he has a lot of tips. I've learned a lot of tips from his video series. And I actually, there's a lot of stuff that sometimes I'll go back and re-edit old pictures. I sort of using some of the principles that he taught, that he teaches in his series, because I realized that some of the stuff I was doing wasn't maybe the best, but most of it is either self-taught or it's from Anthony Morganti's videos that I watch. He is very helpful. I enjoy his video series a lot, and he's very funny. He's got like a really dry sense of humor that he doesn't really say things to be funny, but just the way he says them sometimes and the way he talks, just kind of cracks me up every once in a while. His sense of humor is very appealing to me because it's just kind of silly and dry. So, okay. I've kind of gone through everything for this picture. That's the before, this is the after. You can see it's like, it just looks like a washed out parking lot in the before picture, and then the after it's like popping a little bit more. I think I want to push the blues in here, and if I push the blues it'll mess with the concrete down there too. I just want to see what it looks like. So if I take like the blue saturation and move it up, I mean, you can see in the skateboard whenever I push it up and down, it really pushes that color up, or I can fade it out. I think I'm going to push it up just a little bit because I kind of like, the board graphic is not very clean. You can tell he skates in it a lot because it's very scratched up under here, scratched up everywhere. I kind of wish his board graphic were a little bit cleaner. Like something that I could do probably in Photoshop, like I could probably just like Photoshop out most of this graphic and like put something here to make it look better, but that's not really what I'm about for photography. I would rather just clean up an image and leave it you know, the way it is. I'm not really into like big editorial stuff, and I also am not very good at it because you have to really get in here and like cut everything out by hand, and I'm just not, I don't practice that enough to be good at it. I think I'm gonna bring the overall exposure up maybe like 2 clicks just to brighten things up. I think I'm good with this picture. I'm gonna export it, move on to another one. I've got my export settings set up. I've already got the folder they're going into. I always sharpen for screen with the standard amount whenever I export. It just makes it look nicer, like on a phone screen to me. I have a little watermark that I put in the bottom left corner, and then I export, and the little bar appears up here. Sometimes it takes a while to export, and sometimes it doesn't. It's just kind of back and forth. Sorry, I'm taking a break to check on stuff. Okay, let's go back. I have a bunch of pictures of this guy sort of in the same position. We kept trying to get the picture right last time. So I have like this one where it's a little bit tighter that I just edited, and then the nose or the tail of the board is cut off a little bit. And then I've got one that's almost exactly like it where you have the whole board intact. I like the other picture better, which is why I edited that one. This picture probably looks better as a portrait style picture, but I don't like how much space is up here and how little there is down here. I mean, it's okay in like a rule of thirds sense because he's on like, you know, the 1/3 mark more or less down here, but I wish that he were up here instead. I don't like having the, you know, the less space down here, so I'm not even gonna mess with this picture right now. And like that's another one that's pretty good. One thing that I do sometimes is I'll take, one thing that I really like about Lightroom is that, so I have this picture done, or at least edited as much as I want to right now. You can go over here and copy. You can copy every single adjustment that you made to the picture, and you can even do, like if you have any transforming or any brush stuff on here, which I don't right now, but if you have any of that, you can take that too, but I'm not going to because I don't have any of it. You can copy it. This is like lazy man's Lightrooming right here. And I will arrow over to this shot. And I'm just going to paste the settings from the other picture directly onto this one and see if it looks like garbage or not. See, I paste them right over, and then there's the before. And, oh shit. Come on, there we go. Okay, there's the before, and then the after. Yeah, this is like really useful if you're taking a bunch of pictures basically with the exact same lighting, with the exact same aperture, like f-stop, with the exact same shutter speed. Like the lighting is most important if they're under the same lighting conditions. Then you can basically just take all the edits you made from one picture and just lay them on another one, and then I can go back in here and fine-tune anything I want. Like if I were choosing between the picture I just edited and this one, I would rather present the other one. This is like a more of like a subpar picture compared to the other one, but I can go in here and just fine-tune some of the stuff, like the whites and blacks. I always like to fine-tune, which actually that's fine. Those look good. Yeah, I'm not even really mad about this picture. It looks pretty fine. I'm gonna export it as is. And then we can move on to a different picture. Let's see. I have a big problem whenever I get pictures into my Lightroom catalog where I want to go through and edit like my favorite pictures first, or the pictures that I consider to be like the most superior that I took, and then I have to go back through and like kind of cherry pick the ones that I think are like all right pictures that look better, that I know I could make look better, or just decide that I don't want to edit certain pictures and just be lazy. So let's see, let me look at like this one. This was after this kid had bent the handlebar of this scooter into a perpendicular angle. So this picture's just all right. My camera doesn't always handle very well a situation where the area behind is very well lit and the subject is not, because in order to expose him correctly or light him correctly, I have to really blow out the area behind in a situation like this. So that's why it's all white back there. And the shitty thing about that is if I pull the highlights down, it's not really going to help the situation. Like you can see the trees coming through whenever I pull the highlights down, but it's sort of at the expense of like making this white look very dull. Like it gets kind of gray almost. And I think I would rather have that area be more overexposed than have it look gray. I don't know, it's just personal preference for me, probably. I suppose if I were in Photoshop, I could just cut out the whole back and just like replace it with something else, but that's not really what I'm into. I like that he has a cigarette in his mouth. I'm gonna pull. I tend to edit like pictures very similarly, which is kind of boring, but I mean it is what it is. Like if I have a bunch of pictures that are pretty similar or under similar lighting circumstances, I basically edit them all the same way. I don't know if other people do it that way, but I always do. I always push the point curve from linear to medium first, because it just makes, like here we have it linear, and then you push it to, I always go medium, because it just gives a greater contrast in the image. Like there's the before and there's the after, before and after, and as you can tell before, it's grayer, it's less dynamic, it looks more like you're looking at like a Walmart parking lot. But then if you turn it on, then it just creates better contrast, better shadows, and it just makes the picture look more alive to me. It gives it greater depth, I guess, is what I'm trying to say. And then pull the shadows up a little bit. Nope, too much. Not like that. And like one trick, the dude that I was talking about earlier, Anthony Morganti, whose pictures that or whose YouTube videos that I watch, one thing that I learned from him with the whites and blacks. So the white and black sliders, you can adjust them to where you get a true white or a true black in the picture, which are things that in general you want, I guess, or maybe, I guess it depends on who you are. But one thing you can do whenever you click on the slider, you can hold the Alt or the Option key, and then whenever you click down on the slider, it turns the whole picture black if you're on the white one. And you can slowly move it up until you see some white peeking through, and then, you know, those will be true whites now. But I like to back it off a little bit so that there's not anything that's super overexposed. Because even though this looks like white, it's not a true white unless I would have pushed it up more. And I usually don't like pushing it up because it just makes, I think if you push the whites up too far, it makes the pictures look a little, I don't know, kind of boring maybe. Or you can risk, you know, overexposing a bunch of shit. You can do the same thing with the black one. You hold it down, and then I push it down. And like you can see down here, we've got a little bit of true black already whenever I go to the slider. And then I always like to push the black a little bit more because I prefer a higher sort of dynamic contrast in my pictures. So like that kind of is working for me right now. And the clarity, I'll probably just push it up. Clarity is kind of, see, I never know what to do with clarity. It's so tricky. Because if you push it up, like it kind of washes stuff out a little bit. It makes it look a little bit grainy and a little bit sharper, like in a grainy way. But then you can kind of fix it by pushing the vibrance up. I love vibrance. It really brings some extra life to pictures. But if you push it up way too much, see, it looks ridiculous. Like his arm is now pink, his body is now orange, and there's like a ton of blue coming through over here. I don't want the vibrance all the way up that much. Because what vibrance does is it takes any colors that are not already saturated in the image and it saturates them the higher you go. So it picks up some of the more muted colors in the picture and just kind of brings them out a little bit. My phone is blowing up a tiny bit, so let me check my... Okay. The saturation. And the saturation pushes every color in the picture up. So if I take the saturation way up, you know, like this looks ridiculous now. His face is completely like pink, which is something I don't want. I think I'll push it up a tiny bit. The cool thing about this though is like if I wanted to push the saturation up a lot, I could go down into the individual colors and I could just pull the pink directly out of his face, or I could use this brush tool. I could zoom in on his face and just desaturate his face a little bit, but I don't want this picture to look like this because I think it looks a little bit out of control, unless I'm going for that look. Like when I shoot like sometimes when I shoot like cosplay, I will really push the saturation or really push the vibrance because I know I can get away with it. Like for example, let's go back in time real quick. It's my Lightroom catalog. Like here's like my Deadpool series, and my Spider-Man ones are probably a lot better. Okay, so like my Spider-Man pictures, for example, like this is a really good example right here. Like this Spider-Man picture, although like on the surface to the naked eye it might look like a pretty regular picture, if I show you the before, that's what the before image looks like. It's super washed out, it's very faded, it's pretty overexposed in areas. Like most of this is, you can't really see the detail in the cloud. His suit looks pretty faded. It's just not, I mean, it's an okay, like composition wise, it's an alright shot because it's, you know, following the rule of thirds over here. But whenever I was done editing it, as you can see here, I really cranked up all the color. I pushed the blues and the reds up a lot in order to make his suit really pop. And then the blues also got in the skies. That's one thing I really like to work on in photography is getting good skies. Like I love good cloud coverage and I love good, you know, dehazing the skies more and stuff like that, which spot dehazing skies is not something I was doing whenever I was doing this photo series. I hadn't really learned how to do that yet. But I mean, you can tell before it's kind of drab, after it is much more colorful. So that is a testament to how much I push the vibrance of individual colors and stuff like that in a more like, I mean, it's cosplay. This is like a comic book picture, so I knew I could get away with it. If that were a picture of like a skateboarder, it would look ridiculous probably, because, you know, it would get the color tones all wrong and it would make the person look, I don't know, discolored probably in not a very flattering way. So back to the shot. Let's see, I'm gonna go with the second round of the region settings. Let's see, pulling these highlights down doesn't even really do anything. Pull them down a little bit. Pull the lights up a little bit. Give his body some more light. Pull the darks up a little bit. push the shadows down. So here we have the before picture, then the after, before and after. I don't think this is a great picture, but I'm just kind of doing what I can with it to make it look a little bit better. And then, as always, I'll do split toning. I don't really know where I want to take the split toning in this. I'll push it like right around there. Then the shadows, maybe like there. Kind of makes them look orange though, or a little pink. Maybe like there. I don't know, split toning might not save me in this picture. Usually I use split toning to like kind of cool down an image because I prefer to go for like a kind of a bluer picture. I like cooler tones rather than warm. But I'm actually not sure that the split toning is going to work for me in here because I kind of like him looking warmer than cooler, because there he's cool with split toning on. There he's warmer. Yeah, I'll just turn split toning off. Split toning will not save me today. Sharpening, you know, push it up. The masking up 5. Luminance. This picture is really grainy because it was not in a well lit area. So push the noise reduction up will save me a little bit. Always throw a little vignette in there. Brings the eye to the center of the picture a little bit more. And I think I'll just go back and brighten it up overall a little bit more. And there we have it. I think that's about all I'm going to do for this. So there's before, there's after. Before, see how it looks just kind of hazy, like a parking lot? And then after, it's like, you know, a little more colorful, a little more dynamic. It's just sort of the way that I like pictures to look. But this started as just an okay picture, and it ended up as like a slightly more okay picture. I'm not going to pretend like this is some sort of like photographic masterpiece, because it's absolutely not. And these pictures are not focused very well. I kind of want to edit one of these, but I don't know. I think this one, the middle one, might be the one I'm interested in going for. The overexposure, the light's kind of taking over his fingers a little bit, which is problematic for me. So same thing I always do first. I take the point curve and I push it to medium. It just brings more contrast, makes the picture look a little bit deeper. I always take dehaze up a little bit. Maybe let's go with like 10 for this picture. And then the highlights. I'm hoping that when I push the highlights down, his fingers are going to come back a little bit. It sounds absurd, but let's see what happens. It's not really doing anything. See, so when I push the highlights down, you get some more of the tree in here. You get a little bit of the clouds back here. But it's also at the risk of the picture turning a little bit more gray, or the whites turning a little bit more gray. I think I'm okay with that though. Pull the shadows up. Not too much, maybe like there. This is also not a great picture. Very okay picture, very average. Take the whites, maybe back them off a little. A little speck. There's like one true white right there. Push the blacks down. So there's true black in there. There's some in there. Clarity, I'll probably push up a little bit. Ugh. Vibrance. The vibrance tends to pick up greens a lot. Like whenever I push it up, notice in the back, the trees will like start to like glow basically if I push it up high. Like the trees get kind of silly, and it also picks up a lot of like the blue around, right around the tree leaves, which is not good. I don't like that. So I'm gonna back that off a little bit. And pull these highlights down. These are more like fine-tuned highlights. This picture is just very okay. It doesn't really excite me that much, but it is something. Sometimes when I photograph dudes at the skate park, like I do this thing where like I guess I'm kind of like, I want everybody to feel included. So like if I go to the skate park and photograph, and at this point I've been photographing some of these guys several times, so I mean we're not on like a hangout basis by any means, but you know, they know who I am, and you know, they kind of know what to expect whenever I'm out. I do this thing where I like want to kind of post like a picture for everyone, or I want to like be able to make a folder of pictures for everyone. So so even if I have like a mediocre picture of someone, I will still edit it, just because their standards for what makes a good picture might not necessarily be my standards for what makes a good picture. Because if I didn't know any of these guys, this is the kind of picture that I probably would not edit, because it's just okay. Like there's nothing really that great about this picture. But because, you know, I want everybody to feel included, and I want, you know, to be able to represent everybody at the park, you know, here I am editing it because I'm like a nice guy, I guess, or something like that. That probably was not a case that made me sound like a very good person, but it is what it is. I like pushing this highlight around because notice the sky back here, wherever I push the highlight color to, it kind of like brings that very subtly into the sky, so I can make the sky look slightly pink. I'm going to take it blue. That's usually where I wind up, is in the blues on these, because I just like the way that it looks. Now I'll push the sharpening up some, not too much, gotta be careful. The noise reduction is gonna save me here. Probably take it up to 15 to 20 is about where I usually go, because the noise reduction just kind of smooths things out. I was probably shooting at a pretty high ISO here, which is not, my camera does not handle that well. It makes things look really grainy. So like if I zoom in after the picture like renders correctly, see, it looks very noisy in here. Like you can see a lot of noise in his shirt, but if I turn the detail off, see, like it's extremely noisy. There's lots of speckles going on in there, but after I do the noise reduction, it takes it down a lot to where it looks a lot more manageable. But if I overdo it, the picture becomes really soft, and I don't want that. I don't want it to look that way. I don't want it to look too soft. I like the detail in there, so I have to be careful about noise reduction, because it can get very soft very quickly. I'm sure I could fine-tune it, but I just never really do that because I'm lazy. And that's pretty much it for this picture, I think. I could probably stand to crop it a little bit. Cropping is one of those things I always like forget to do. Or not always, but it's just like, you know, maybe he should be centered a little bit more. This picture is not a rule of thirds picture at all, but I can at least do him the justice of centering him a little bit. But there's the before, there's the after. See, it's just like okay, then it's like more okay. You know, it's just an alright picture. Export that sucker. Let's check on the stream settings real quick. Okay, my stream health is yellow, which is better than it was last night. It was like red last night, and I was having a very difficult time because I didn't realize if it looked like balls or not, but hey, it's up to green, so that's exciting. Last night it was red like all night whenever I was doing this, and I couldn't figure out like how to help it. I didn't know what to do. Okay, next up. So like here's a shot of this guy grinding on the rail. He's got a cigarette in his mouth. I love, like almost every skateboarder that I photograph smokes cigarettes. And I always think it's such a hoot whenever they're smoking and skating at the same time. It just kind of cracks me up. I have this really, not really great, but it's like a pretty, you know, fine picture of one of the skateboarders who's like up on the half pipe and he just like has his cigarette in his fingers. Like he pulled it out of his mouth for a second, and it's pretty good. I like when they have cigarettes while they're skating. I just think that's really funny. I wish that there had been clouds in the sky. I love a good cloud situation, and it was not happening today. The weird thing about yesterday is whenever I went to the skate park to shoot, it was like beautiful all day long, and then I go to the skate park. It takes me about 20 minutes to drive to the skate park. I go to the skate park, and it is like, it started pouring down rain like 5 minutes before I got there, and this skate park is directly, like, this is a highway up here, and the pictures that I shot, like the picture I just edited was down here. There's like the bowls over here, and anytime it rains, this sort of outside uncovered area is just completely fucked because it's raining, and you know, you can't really skate in the rain. And so everybody goes under here, but a lot of the water leaks through the highway, and like you can even see the water back here that was still drying. The water gets all up under here, so the bowls, this is like the safest place whenever it's raining, and that's also the most difficult place to take pictures because the skaters are everywhere, and I have a really hard time like keeping up with them in the bowls, unless they're trying one trick over and over again, and then I can kind of plant myself and, you know, work on them. But yeah, so it looks like beautiful here and like blue skies and sunset, but it was like a torrential downpour like 30 minutes before this. And it was actually so hot yesterday in New Orleans that whenever it was raining, there was like water vapor and steam coming up off the concrete out here and just like rolling off as the rain was drying because it was so hot. So that was pretty neat. You know, if water vapor is something that you think is neat, like I do, because I'm like 10 years old at heart. I don't know why I talk a bunch and don't do any editing, and then I start editing and I shut up. I should probably have been doing this stuff while I was talking. See, I'm actually not too keen to pull the highlights down here because it really darkens the sky and makes it look a little bit unnatural. Maybe. Pull the shadows up so you can see him, see his arm, see his side a little bit more. And do the whites trick. I'll leave those right where they are. Black. There's already quite a bit of black in the picture. I'll push it just a little bit. And one thing that I could do with this picture too is that I took it, the camera is tilted in a very strange way in this picture. I can straighten it out a little bit, but straightening it means that I would have to crop it quite a bit, and that's just something that I have to come to terms with if I want to crop it that much in order to like straighten it out a little bit, or if I'm okay with the way it looked before. because if I do that, he's like a little bit more upright, but I lose a lot of the info from the picture before. So I actually think I'm going to take the cropping back out. Yeah, I'm actually just going to leave it like this. And this is just an okay picture too. Like, I don't think this is a great shot. It's just, it's all right. I think this is the only picture I took of this guy all day yesterday. I don't even know who he is. Some of the guys I like, I try to follow on Instagram and stuff because I like to tag them whenever I post pictures. But one thing I'm really bad about at the park is not like asking people. Like, I should just go up to them and be like, oh, hey, what, like, are you on Instagram? What's your name? And sometimes I do that, but sometimes I'm just, I don't know, like, too scared to, or I just don't like want to bother them while they're skateboarding. And people's attitudes vary. Like, sometimes if I take pictures of people, you can tell that they're just like so excited that I'm out to take pictures, and you know, they really want like me to send them all the pictures, you know, and that kind of stuff. And some people like don't care at all. Like, there was a dude that I photographed a while back, and he was like pretty good, and I don't think he goes to the skate park very much, and I think he was kind of surprised that I like approached him and like straight up told him that I was interested in photographing him. And I got his Instagram handle whenever I was done taking his picture, and I literally do not think he has logged into Instagram since I posted his pictures, and I've only posted like 2 shots of him, and that was like a month or 2 ago. So it's funny like how, you know, some of these people, you know, not everybody has to be into Instagram, and some of them definitely are not, but you know, if they ever log back in, their picture is waiting for them. And one of the parkour guys that I used to photograph in Omaha when I lived there, probably one of my favorite guys to photograph, as a matter of fact, he is one of those dudes who like isn't very, he's pretty like selectively social, and he doesn't have Twitter. He has Facebook, but he's one of those dudes who never ever posts anything on Facebook, which is fine because, you know, not everybody wants to do that. And he just, like, my Instagram alert went up the other day because if your Facebook friends join Instagram, sometimes Instagram will tell you, and he joined Instagram like a week ago, and I got really excited because I have like a bunch of pictures of him, several that I've posted on Instagram, because he's a really good athlete and he's really photogenic. And so I was excited whenever he joined Instagram because I thought he was going to start posting, and, you know, was, you know, going to take some of my pictures and post them because he has access to like all the pictures I've ever cleaned up of him. And so I sent him a Facebook message the other day, and I was like, oh, hey, it's about time you joined Instagram. Like, it's good to see you over there. And he was like, yeah, I don't think I'm going to post anything. I just joined because I wanted to see something that somebody else posted. And I was like, oh my God, are you serious? So I went through and tagged him in all these pictures, like probably like the 100 plus pictures I posted of him on Instagram. And he hasn't posted anything. I don't even think he's following anybody. He has like 6 followers and he has no pictures. But then whenever you go to his tagged pictures, like there's like 100 pictures that come up that I've tagged him all in. So it's like really absurd. But I mean, it's whatever. I don't think he minds. Okay, so here's the before. Here's the after. Before, after, before, after. Sometimes I do this. I just go back and forth a bunch, and I evaluate if my edits are good or if they're garbage, because sometimes they're garbage. Serious about what, Justin? So FYI, the chat for the YouTube room, like my YouTube stream is very, it's like, there's like a 20-second delay between what I'm doing and what happens on the stream. So if you post any comments, they come up like late. So am I serious about what, Justin? Whenever you hear this in like 30 seconds. I think I'm a punk. the dehaze up a little bit. Boom, boom. I think I'm actually going to take the clarity down a bit. I feel like this picture's got a little bit more of an edge than I want it to. Taking the clarity down can solve that. Yeah, the dude, the guy on Instagram who joined, who doesn't post anything. Yeah. He's such a nice guy too. Not that you can't be nice and selectively social, because I like to think I'm also both of those things, but I think I'm actually going to pull the saturation down a tiny bit. This picture just, so like I'm at odds with a picture like this because like this is a golden hour picture. The sun was going down over here and it was shining this beautiful orange light on these dudes. I tend to prefer cooler toned pictures, but golden hour pictures are always kind of orange. I mean, that's the point of them. They bathe everything in this like golden glow. So he's very warm compared to what he would look like if he weren't. And if I desaturate it, he is obviously less warm. I can desaturate the whole damn thing and turn it black and white. And I kind of like I know he's supposed to look orange, but it kind of bothers me, and I want to take the saturation down a little bit. But if I do, then he just looks more washed out. So I think I'm just going to leave it. And I need to come to terms with the fact that this is a golden hour picture and he's supposed to look warm. And stop and just export it and move on. Okay, I'm going to call it quits on that one. Let's see. I like this shot a lot, even though technically this is a thing that I talked about on last night's stream, that I'm pretty sure one person watched my stream last night, and it was Parker, from one of my good friends from Salt Lake City. He watched for a little while because I streamed at like 1 o'clock in the morning. One thing that I talked about last night on my stream is about skateboard positioning and photography, because I don't know like anything about skateboarding really. My skateboarding knowledge is basically Tony Hawk's Pro Skater, like on the PlayStation 1. I don't really know, like I know like what an ollie is and like what a kickflip and what grinding is and like a manual, but I don't really know a whole lot about if somebody's like, oh, I did like a, I don't know, like a nose stall manual or something grind. Like I don't really know what that means. So I always like pictures like this where a dude's like taking off and his skateboard is like arced up, and they always look the same because they have like the ankle roll going on and like the board is in the air, and I really value being able to see the board graphic whenever I take a picture. And there's a guy that I photograph who is like pretty damn good. And he's one of the guys that I photograph pretty regularly. And one time whenever I was out, he was giving me like tips on skateboard, sort of like technique. And I guess that this is like bad, sort of like this is like not where you want to capture the apex of the picture, because like right here he's like just about on the apex of the jump, and he's like on like the upswing, and I really like the body language in a picture like this. But I guess he told me it's better to get the picture whenever like just after the apex has been reached and the skateboard is coming down, and like a more valuable shot is where like your feet are coming back down onto the skateboard rather than you sort of climbing into the air with it. And so there's probably like a bunch of pictures that I have that I think are not like aesthetically pleasing, that are technically better shots, because I like the way this looks, where the guy's going up in the air but technically like maintaining control over the board in a way that lets you land smoothly is like more technically impressive from a skateboarding standpoint. And so he you know, anytime I'm shooting him, I basically like on the spot, I'll like show him the camera roll as I'm going and be like, oh, is this good? Is this garbage? Is this good? And usually it's garbage, but I try to get it right. And so it's just interesting to learn more about the sport. Like, I should know more about skateboarding than I do if I'm going to photograph it a lot, but I really don't. Whoops. So even though, I guess the point of the story is, even though I really like this picture and I like his body language and I like where he's going with the skateboard and I like being able to see the skateboard graphic, a better picture would have been like a split second later whenever he's coming down. Even though I don't think that would make a very dynamic picture, technically it's more impressive from like a skateboarding athleticism standpoint, if you will. But I don't care, because these are my pictures, and this is not going in a pro skateboarding magazine, so I can edit whichever ones I want. See, and in a highlight situation like this, because the sun was over here and beaming directly onto his body's a little bit overexposed. In certain areas, some of the detail is gone. So you pull the highlights down, you kind of like lose, well, actually it's not so bad. Like, you gain a little bit more detail, but it just looks maybe a little bit less vibrant, but I can probably fix that later. Pull the shadows up a little bit. It's mainly affecting this shadowy area back here, which kind of doesn't really matter. Take the whites, just gonna leave them. Blacks, push them down. Oh, not that much. Yeah, about that. And I don't think I want to do anything. One thing that bothers me about this picture is that my shadow is right there. Obviously the shadows are very long because of where the sun was. One thing I can probably do is there's this lovely tool up here called I think it's called the clone stamp or spot removal, but it like clone stamps stuff out. I could probably clone stamp some of my shadow out of here, or I could clone some of this shadow into like the armhole, and then you maybe wouldn't know that it's me holding a camera. I don't know if I'm going to do that, but it's a thought. Sometimes I clone stamp, sometimes I don't. I have a picture of a dude doing a backflip in a gymnastics gym, and I clone stamped like an entire like toddler girl out from behind him, and it just really cracks me up whenever I do stuff like that. Because like the trained eye could probably tell that I did it, but the average person probably would not think anything of it. Let's see. Gotta be careful with the vibrance here. It's gonna really push the blues in the sky. See, I don't have to do a whole lot to this picture, not to be like big-headed or anything, but it's like all right on its own. Just need to fix like some little things. That. Pull the lights up. No, actually, if I pull the lights up, I'm gonna lose more of the detailing in his chest. And one thing I could do is I could take this spot tool, the adjustment brush tool. I don't know what any of the names for any of this stuff is. I could take the adjustment brush tool and I could spot correct his whole body, which sounds weird, but I could like up the shadows and like take the highlights down just in his body to give some more detail to like his muscle structure. I don't think I'm gonna do that, but it's something that I could do. But it would probably be a struggle to make it look natural if I did that. Also, it'd be at the risk of like, quote unquote, editorializing the picture, which, I mean, you know, it's photography, so I can do whatever I want. But okay, so we have the before, after, before, after, before, after. I like where this is going so far. This shadow looks like a tattoo on his shoulder, but I promise it's not. Let's do split toning. Highlights. I'll leave it right about there. Take the shadows. Push them. Maybe right in there? Yeah, okay, that's good. I'm fine with that. Sorry, getting text messages. Okay. Pull the sharpening up a little bit. Take the masking up. Push the luminance up, maybe like 10, just to soften any grain. And then vignette, always vignette a little bit. And I'm actually gonna try to see what I can do about this situation down here. So I can take the clone, the little stamp tool, and I can like cut, like put it right there. And then it'll pick up, I can move this to pick up more of the shadow. Let's see if I can make this work. And then done. See, and basically what I did there was fill in the shadow, the little gap in the shadow. Let me take it back one step. So like, come on. So like there you can see the little, where my arm is up to my camera, and then I put the shadow in that little triangle gap. Right there. So now it's closed. It's just like a little stupid thing that I wanted to do because I wanted to make it, the shadow look like it's not me standing there. I don't like to have my own shadow or my own body parts in pictures. So yeah, I think I'm good with this one though. Let me export. I think I'm actually gonna switch gears for a second and import some. I took some skyline pictures last night of New Orleans, the New Orleans skyline, and I think I'm gonna import. I haven't even looked at them yet, so there is a 100% chance that they could all be garbage. But I'm gonna import them, and I think I'm gonna see if they're garbage or not and play with them a little bit and just see what I can do, because skyline skyline photo editing will be a lot different than sports photography. So let me just import all of them and see what they look like. This might be a little bit more interesting because like my New York pictures, I have a set of skyline pictures from New York that I took a couple weeks ago, and they are like, the color toning that I did in them is like way different than what they initially look like to the naked eye. So maybe I can do the same thing here. We'll see. I'll let these import for a minute. Okay, go back to all photographs. Of course, it spawned at the very beginning. Drag the slider down. Okay, so here are the skyline pictures. These pictures, there's like a pretty good chance these pictures could be terrible, but we'll see. Okay, so like this one, for example, I don't even think it's in focus. I literally had my tripod on like a rock. The water was right in front of me on the rocks. Yeah, these pictures are not great. There was a boat coming through on this picture, which is that bloom of light right there, because the boat was moving from here to here and the exposure was long. Same thing, another boat right there. That one's a little bit better. Okay, like that one's alright. Like we got some sunset over here. The buildings look like they're actually in focus for once. There's a boat moving right there, but it's like it's okay. It doesn't look bad. I like that one. The color tone in that one's really good. I love seeing all the reflections on the water, and I can really play those up. Oh, see, that's nice. Let's see. And then this like giant cloud over here was kind of ridiculous. There's like a big boat thing over there that wasn't moving. I don't really know what it is. Some kind of like tanker or something. I really enjoyed the way that cloud looked. I wish that this cloud had been closer to the skyline, because the skyline buildings are over here. The cloud is over here. Sort of like ominously reaching over. See, like this picture is pretty solid. Like that one is pretty good. I think I'm gonna take this one and try to edit this one for a minute. I want to get this rock out of here. I accidentally had the camera down to where the rock was. I'm probably gonna end up cropping this into some like stupid dimension too to make it look really like thin, like a thin crop, if you will. Let me see if I can get it like that, maybe, for now. Let's see, let's start here. Let's move to point curve medium, as per usual. Let's take dehaze up a little bit. Even if I'm going from sports to skylines, some of my processes still remain the same. Let's go. The highlights might not really make a difference because there's not really much highlight going on in the picture, first of all. Turn them down a little bit. Bring the shadows. That's not even changing very much. Shadows up. Sometimes one thing about Lightroom that kind of bothers me, well, maybe not bothers me, it's more about the computer that I use, is that sometimes the stuff that, like, if I move a slider in Lightroom, it'll take like several seconds for the update to show on the picture. It's not instantaneous because the computer I use is a little bit old and it's not like really high end. So that's a little bit annoying. It's just like a little bit of a delay. The blacks are actually not. I thought there was going to be a lot of blacks in this picture, but there aren't. Let's do that. I think I'm actually going to push the clarity toward the soft edge by 5. Then the vibrance is where I can have a lot of fun here. See, because this picture is more like the Spider-Man picture where I know that I can really push the color tones and get away with it, because I don't have like people that I have to do like accurate color toning on to make their skin tones look cool. This is all about the city, the environment, you know, the colors of the photo. So I can get really inaccurate with the color representation, and I don't really care. So I like cranking these colors up. One thing that's bothering me is the fact that all the buildings are getting really yellow. I think I'm going to turn the white balance down. I'm going to push it blue, and I'm probably going to push the tint pink. But I'm not. I'm going to reserve that for later. I'm probably going to do that last. I just adore these reflections on the water, though. It's so pretty. And I'm going to use, what is this called? The graduated filter. What I'll end up doing is taking a graduated filter down here and really pushing those colors, but we'll get there. I'm getting like excited about the edits I'm going to do later, and I'm not even to that stage yet. darks up. Yeah, that's pretty nice. Shadows. Yeah, this is good. So one thing I can do too with the yellows in the building is I can push the yellow down over here and see how much that affects. If I take the yellow saturation and just push it straight down, like you can see, it automatically made the buildings more, it balanced them out a little bit. So that's actually pretty good because it didn't really affect a whole lot else in the picture. I'm gonna push it down a tiny bit, and I'm actually gonna push the luminance of yellow up some. So it'll make the yellow brighter and a little more washed out. But I'm hoping that I can solve that problem a little bit in color toning later, white balance toning. But let's move on to split toning. Split toning's probably not going to do a ton for this picture, the highlight one especially, because there's not really a lot of highlighting going on in this picture. It's pretty dark. I love the pink and the clouds over here. Okay. Need to like get a grip right now. I'm like excited about this picture. But this, the shadow color toning, is really going to change the look of the picture. I might actually push it pink a little bit. Like maybe like that. Really didn't do a whole lot. I'm like overstating how much this is working. Let's see, turn the sharpening up, masking up a little bit. Noise reduction I'm going to take up to like 20, I think. Just really soften everything. Not going to vignette yet. Actually, we'll take dehaze up a little bit again. Boom. Okay, let me experiment with white balancing, see if this does anything. White balance is one of those things that like really, it takes fucking forever. I usually push it down by two values at a time. As you can see, it's taking hold a little bit. Boom, boom. See, the blues are getting bluer, the buildings are becoming less yellow. I'm going to keep pushing it just to really see what happens. It's one thing I love about Lightroom is that none of these, no changes you make are permanent. So if, you know, if I want to push the blues all the way down and see what it looks like, and if it looks like absolute garbage, then I can just push them right back up, or I can take a step back through my edit history. I'm going to take the tint up and see what happens. Okay, see, I like what's happening here. It's bluer. The buildings are, the yellow from the buildings, the yellow tint is pretty much gone. The sky is very blue. The tint pushing it up pink a little bit, enhance the pink around the buildings. This is good. This makes me happy. Okay, so I'm gonna crop. Probably going to do kind of an abnormal crop. There's a lot of sky going on up here, and I'm not really a fan of all that sky happening up there. So I'm going to unlock the crop, and I'm actually just going to take it down a lot. Because if there was a lot of cloud situation happening up here, I would be a lot happier to leave the crop where it was, because clouds are interesting and I like them. But there's really nothing going on up there except for blue sky. So let me... I'm gonna really push this down. This is like one of those pictures when you go into like Hobby Lobby and it's like one of those like panoramic pictures that has like New York written in the bottom and like really bad typeface. This is like totally what I'm going for now. Like like cheesy, like something you'd see at Hobby Lobby. So that might work. I might need to straighten it. One really cool thing you can do in here is whenever you have the crop tool on, you can take this little aspect or the little angle ruler, you click on it, and you can drag, you can click and drag the ruler along the horizon. So click it there and it makes a straight line, and I can just drag it right along the sea level, like the horizon line. And it's a little tricky here because I used a really wide lens, so it's not a straight line, or you know, the that was kind of a confusing thing to say. So the line doesn't follow exactly where the sea level goes, I guess, or the river level. But I can do my best, and then you let go, and it automatically levels the picture. Like, as you can tell, that was not a very drastic difference because it was pretty level already. But so this is like sort of what I'm going for. Let me pull the exposure, the overall exposure up some. And now I'm gonna take a graduated filter. If you hold shift, it'll keep it in a straight line. And I'm gonna take that filter and basically put it all over the water, drag it up into the skyline a little bit, and then let go. And if you hover over the little node in the middle, it shows you the red shadow thing, shows you where the adjustments you make are gonna affect. And I'm actually gonna pull the whole thing up a little bit because I want the effect to be mostly in the water. You can also click the mask overlay button down here and it shows you basically the same thing without having to hold it over the little node. What I'm gonna do is go in and fine tune these adjustments in here and see what I can do to the reflections down here. Which, I mean, some of them have already changed because I already had some stuff going on with them. So like the exposure, you know, I can make it brighter. I don't really like the way that looks. Maybe a little bit. The contrast, I can move it up and down, see what happens there. That just makes it a little bit darker. That makes it a little less contrast-y, if that's a word. Highlights, I can pull them around. That kind of darkens things. That brightens them up a little bit. I think I'm just going to leave it. Shadows, I might pull up a little bit. And then the clarity and the dehaze and the saturation is really what's going to push this. So like if I take dehaze up, it's going to make everything kind of darker, but make the colors a little bit more vibrant. Like that's probably good. The clarity, I don't really know if that's going to do anything. I actually don't value high clarity here because I like the water to look a little bit more dreamlike. So I'll push the sharpness down actually to make it a little more, a little less defined, if you will. And then the saturation, I can really push it if I want and really bring out those colors in the sky or in the water, I mean. And then that. So that really brings those colors out. I think I'm actually going to go back and take down the yellow a tiny bit more from the buildings. So this is more or less about the final product that I want out of this picture. And we can take a step back. This is what it looked like before, and this is after. So like when you first look at the picture, like when I first looked at the picture, I thought like, oh, it looks all right. Like you've got a pretty good reflection. The sky is blue. You get some, you know, kind of pink and orange cloud business coming through over here. But once I'm done, it's like insane. Like the blue is like super blue. The colors and the reflections are super, way more saturated than they were before. You know, the pink is much more pink over here in the skyline. The pink in these buildings, this sort of light pollution, if you will, that's coming up is much pinker. And I don't know, I value this. I think this is a good photograph. It probably could stand to be a little sharper because the buildings are probably maybe not as sharp as I want them to be. You know, it's just kind of not the best. I could probably pull the noise reduction up maybe one more click. It's probably not really gonna help anything, but I like this. I like this picture a lot. For my first time out photographing a New Orleans skyline, I think that is an A-okay picture. And I will actually choose a different folder to put it into. Go back to my July folder. New Orleans Skyline folder, New Orleans Lightroom. And then export that bad boy. And there we go. Yeah, I like that a lot. I'm very happy with that picture. And like this shot is pretty dark. Oh, I took this on a different lens. I didn't even think about that. I'm gonna check back on my stream business. Ooh, something's happened on Twitter. Probably something stupid. Sorry, break time. You guys get to see how exciting my life is checking my Twitter account. My stream health is yellow. Alright, back to Lightroom we go. Okay, so here we have a different skyline picture. I took this one on a different camera, which is why the angle is not nearly as wide as it was before. But this picture will probably be alright too. I'm basically going to try to do the exact same thing I did on the picture before this one, but on this one too. My commentary is probably thrilling right now. I'm trying to get some logistical stuff together real quick. Give me a second. I'm actually gonna send another tweet that basically says that I'm streaming in case anybody cares about looking at my skyline pictures. I'm not really doing this stream for fame and attention. I just think that maybe somebody out there will find this interesting. Probably not though, but you know, we'll see. Okay, back to editing. Okay, so I'm basically going to try to do the same thing with this picture. Actually, let me look at the other ones around it and see what they look like. See, this picture was going to be good, but there was a boat here that was coming toward the port that was to the left of me, and it just did not work out for me. And there was another boat that was coming through here. I just can't handle, there's so many boats, I can't handle it. And see, like, a boat right here. This is a little less intense though. Like, this is an alright picture. And then let's see what else I've got. Yeah, I went vertical after this. Oh man, that picture's terrible. Let me go back to that other one. Yeah, okay, so let's try to make some magic with this one. We'll see. Okay, so I'm basically going to run through the same stuff that I did earlier. This is probably the last picture I'll edit live, and then I'll probably log off for a little bit. So I'm going to take the medium contrast up as per usual, turn the dehaze up a little bit. Let's push it to like 20. So this picture is super dark. Hopefully I can fix that. I can pull the exposure up in its entirety. But I might be able to make the colors work to my advantage by the fact that it's underexposed. Highlights, pull it down a little bit. It kind of gets rid of some of the glare that's going on from these bright lights. The shadows. And pulling the shadows up doesn't do shit. I'm just going to pull them all the way up. Not all the way. Pull the whites down a little bit. Some of the lights in here, there's true whites in the overexposed building lights. Push the blacks down a little bit, maybe like that. There's like true blacks happening right here. I'm going to take the clarity down. Actually, let me see what it looks like up. Probably looks terrible. Oh boy, Lightroom is running at the speed of a snail at the moment. Running a streaming program on a old MacBook Air and using Lightroom at the same time over Wi-Fi is not recommended, but this is the only way that I can do this, so here we are. Alright, I'm going to push the vibrance a lot, probably. Yeah, there we go. That's a little bit better. Push the saturation up a lot. Yeah, okay. Now let's take the these highlights probably won't really do much. Pull these highlights down. It's not really going to do a whole lot. Pull these lights up. Yeah, that's okay. Pull the darks up. Here we go. Yeah, that's better. You can get some of the purple in the sky up there. I'm actually going to pull the shadows up a little bit too. Push the lights back down just a tiny bit. Yeah, this is okay. I'm going to pull the yellow down some to get rid of the yellow on the building fronts. Something I'll probably be able to fix with a white balance later. Let me do that split toning again. Take a blue like I usually do. That doesn't really change much because there's not a whole lot of highlight business going on in this picture. Let's take the shadows. I'm actually going to push him into the pink a little bit so I can really capitalize on the pink that's going on in the clouds over here. Of course, sharpen it. Probably more than that. Take the masking up 5. Luminance, of course. Really smooth the picture out. Okay, now I'm going to go into white balancing again. See if I can get this one to look similar to the one before it. Take it down a couple, take it down a couple more. Yeah, this is good. Okay. And then I'm going to push the tint into the pink a little bit. One more. One more. Oh boy. Let's take that down again. Okay, this is okay. Now I'm gonna crop it. Let me unlock it. There's not really anything going on in the sky, and I want this to be a little more of like a disciplined, tight shot. So I'm going to pull that crop down, maybe like so. Oh, I should make sure try to make it level at the same time, actually. Get it right on the water level. Draw a nice little line. Boom. That's better. Okay, and then I'm going to do the same thing I did last time with the graduated filter thing. I'm going to draw it up from down there. I'm going to pull it up a little bit. Actually, I'm going to keep it all the way at the bottom because I want to get all that detail down there. I'm just going to pull up the top. Pull it a little bit more. Pull it up a little bit. Yeah, okay. Now, let's see. Push the exposure up a little bit so you can see those reflections a little bit better. Contrast probably is not going to make much of a difference. Oh, that's not so bad. Let's keep it right in there. As you can tell, I'm very serious about how I do these pictures by how I just like move all the sliders every which way and barely decide on how I want the pictures to look. I'm like, oh, I guess this looks okay. Ooh. Pull the shadows up a little bit. I'm not going to mess with the whites and blacks. I'm going to pull the clarity up a tiny bit. Push the sharpness down some to let the water be a little more soft. And then dehaze up. And then the saturation. I'm really going to push the saturation, I think. I think that'll probably do it. Done. I could maybe do a graduated filter up top and just brighten that sky a little bit. Let me see if that'll do something. Pull one. See, I've got some presets on there already, so it just darkened it immediately. Let me pull the saturation, dehaze down. I'm just going to pull the exposure up some. Just brighten it up a little bit, the skyline, the sky up there. Actually going to pull the contrast down, pull the sharpness down. I wonder if clarity will help. It's probably not really going to make much of a difference. Let me call that. Okay. So this is sort of, I mean, this picture's not amazing, but it's like the more or less the finished product of what I'm kind of going for. So we can see the before. So there's before, and then there's after. So here it's very dark. The buildings are super yellow toned. Not really my best exposure. This was a 15-second exposure, which was not enough, but I could have probably stood to done maybe like a 30-second exposure. But hey, you know, this is what it looks like at the end of editing, so I'm not even really that mad. It's not as good as the picture before it, in my opinion. I like that one more than this one. I'm going to pull the yellows down a little bit. Sometimes this happens too, where I look at a picture and then I go back to it and I'm like, ugh, it's not as good as I thought it was. The yellow tones in the building are driving me crazy a little bit. I'm just going to pull those down. Like sacrificing all the yellows in the picture just so I can get these buildings to look a little bit more white. Push the yellow luminance up some. Okay, let's go back. Boom. Boom. Okay, I feel better about this. I feel good. If I really wanted to, I could probably go in with the spot corrector thing. What's this called? I can never remember what this is called. The adjustment brush. And like sweep over these two buildings and like desaturate them a little bit, or maybe turn the exposure up on them a little bit, and that might help also. But I'm not really feeling that dedicated at the moment. I'm actually kind of hungry. I just kind of want to go eat. It's like my urge to do anything is like driven by food. Like, oh, I need to finish this picture so I can go eat. I'm gonna export this one too. I like how soft the water looks right there. That's nice. Okay, let me check the folder. This is my skater folder. Go back. Twice. Let's check my Skyline folder. Make sure they're all exporting correctly. I mean, I guess I only edited, what, like 2 or 3 of these pictures? Yeah. I'll probably come back to it and do some other ones later. Sometimes Lightroom takes approximately 600 years to export pictures, and it is silly. Probably doesn't help that I'm running streaming software and Lightroom and like 8 websites at the same time over Wi-Fi. I feel pretty good about that picture. I like that one. It's no New York, but you know, it is what it is. Nice. Okay, well, these pictures are exporting. I think I'm gonna close this stream out. So I don't know how often I'll do these. I don't even know if they're even worth doing, but thank you if you tuned in, or if you're watching an archived version of this, thank you. I'm not a professional photographer. I'm not professionally trained in Lightroom. I just want to reiterate that. I have been taking pictures regularly for about a year, although I do have some press photography training experience from college, although that doesn't really count for much. But I've only been using Lightroom for maybe like 6 months or so. So if you're watching this video and you think that I'm some kind of like, that maybe I suck at Lightroom, or I should know better, or I should know all these techniques that I don't know, that's probably true, because I'm not that great. I just do what I can and check YouTube videos every once in a while to see if I can learn stuff. And I think that's it. So I will keep everybody tuned into whenever I'm doing more streams, and that is that, I think. So thank you for tuning in, and I will catch you guys in the next one. Thank you.